questioning as a source of learning. What are the different perspectives, modern as well as ancient? And how can all this help teachers? There are several types of questions in the modern perspective. We have close-ended, open-ended, key questions, essential questions, and big questions, which are commonly used. Let us examine them. Close-ended and open-ended questions are very common. In fact, close-ended questions are the easiest of them all because there is only one possible answer. It is sometimes a yes-no question. So in the classroom, it is very easy for the teacher to use it. It has its advantages as well. For example, when the teacher wants to drill certain ideas, certain concepts like times tables, close-ended questions become very handy. Open-ended questions take some more time because it requires extra thinking. The questions get bounced around in the class, and the teacher is in a position to identify which are the students who can think. But very often teachers are afraid because they are afraid of losing control of the class. So the natural tendency is to opt for close-ended questions. But what is the fundamental difference? Let us see. This is an example of close-ended. What is the capital of India? The answer is just one. Whereas the same question can be adapted to an open-ended in this way. Why is New Delhi the capital of India? As you can see, the answers can be many. Many perspectives come in, and therefore ideas get bounced around in the class. So these are the common types. Now what are these questions? Key questions and essential questions. The key question is fundamentally used to identify what are the necessary concepts that need to be included in the syllabus or in the teaching. It is very handy for the teachers. How did cities around the world deal with water scarcity? Is it something that I need to introduce to my children? So this key question has helped me identify those. The same way, essential questions are also useful in framing syllabi. How severe is water shortage? How urgent? So in classroom teaching practice, the teacher needs to use these two types of questions to identify what she will include, what he will include. Types of questions are essential, and now let us look at big questions also. Key questions is one thing, then essential questions and big questions are another thing, but they are very closely related. So how do we identify? The scope of the essential question is basically specific to disciplines and units of study or chapters. Big questions are broad philosophical questions, and they are universal. The purpose of essential question is to direct our focus to the right part of a discipline, right part of a concept. So they guide curriculum. Big questions, they spark wonder, curiosity, and existential inquiry. That means it's larger inquiry. So you can't expect students to opt for them, but there may be one or two bright sparks who are in a position to do it. And the context where we use essential questions are basically within the lesson, within the subject, whereas big questions often become interdisciplinary and they focus on life at large. Here we have some examples. How do ecosystems maintain balance is the essential question. So if you notice, it is in the purview of specific subjects. Whereas what are the responsibility of what responsibility to the natural world, our responsibility to the natural world, that is the big question. So it goes beyond the purview of the discipline. Therefore, big questions can be used by the teacher in the classroom to start the inquiry process, to start the teaching process and help students start thinking. Here are some more. Questions on life and the universe for which there are no clear-cut answers and calls for deep thinking. They are called the seeker's questions. So the big questions are by nature very, very large in their scope, unlike the essential questions. Now let us look at the Indic perspective. These are the Indic style of questioning, but not necessarily in any hierarchical order. We will come to that later. Pariprashna, that is inquiry into the ultimate truth. Why is it useful? Because we need to ask these questions in order to probe into reality. When we want to know what is the reality. For instance, when we study the Sukshma Sharira, we need to understand what is the when we study the Sthula Sharira, we need to understand what is the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira. Then the inquiry starts. That is Pariprashna. Samshaya. What are the doubts? These are basically doubts that is asked to the teachers by the students. So Samshaya questions are typical of students. Vichara is contemplative inquiry. To engage in deep contemplation or meditation to realize the truth in the path of self-inquiry. So how do I contemplate? How do I probe further? How do I know that I am right? Those are all vichara. Then we have vyavaharika, which are practical questions. They address practical, ethical daily life questions. Supposing you're in the lab and students ask about how this can be fixed or how this can be used, a particular equipment, then that is vyavaharika. So these also students are likely to use. Then we have avidya, which are questions arising from ignorance. This is also typical of students. They don't know, there is misunderstanding, so they are asking. So it can lead to philosophical, but the examples given here are philosophical in nature. But we can apply this to our day-to-day practice. Siddhanta, which is the philosophical questions. What are the foundational principles? So these are similar to the big questions. So classify learners' questions into those arising due to ignorance, those asked to clarify doubts, those addressing practical questions, practical concerns, those that dig deeper into finding reality, those with a desire to do philosophical inquiry, and those that come from a seeker, a sadhaka. So we need to analyze the students' questions into these, categorize them. And when we raise questions in the classroom, we need to identify which is the right type of question that we can raise in the classroom. So this is how we can use questions in the learning process of students. Now let us look at the hierarchy of the Indian perspective. Here it is. So the first type of question that they are likely to ask is questions arising out of ignorance. So these are the initial type. When they don't know what the topic is about, they are likely to ask. So from the kind of questions they ask, we will know whether they are ignorant or not. Similarly, those that arise as doubts, these are very common. Then the vyavaharika, practical. It's only after that the pariprashna starts, where they need to understand what is behind the sthula sharira or what is behind the sukshma sharira, both. So then you know that the student is keen to scratch the surface and understand reality behind, or the subtleties behind the reality. Then you have the Siddhanta questions, philosophical. The Vichara questions come in last because they are from the sadhakas. That you may not get to see that in the classroom. So this is how you can organize the Indian perspective. And we need to start using all these methods, the modern as well as the Indian, in the classroom.